Hello, this is part 15 of our game making tutorial. This one's going to be about animation and screen shake. Those are two things we're going to do, both kind of related to like the feel of the game, neither of which I have really any experience with. I feel like I've done screen shake once in like a jam game, but there's none in Gunpoint, there's none in Heat Signature yet, there will be. So it's fun for me to figure out how this works. Animation I have done the code side of it, but I am terrible at the actual business of it, so we're going to keep it very simple. This isn't going to be animations that look good, this is going to be how to do animation, how to actually make it happen. And we're going to do it to the enemy first, because that's the easiest thing to do. This enemy really only does one thing, he just walks around, and so he's always in a walking state, so we don't need to worry about creating like a separate animation for him. So I've just opened up the sprite here. So I commented the first time I made sprites that it was kind of weird that you sort of open it here, then it's there, then you open it from there to here, and then you click it from there and it goes into here, and it's a multi-step process. The reason for this intermediary window here is because this is the one where you see all the frames of the animation. And to create a new frame, you could, I don't even know how to add one normally, I just always copy and paste the current one. So you click it, Control-C, Control-V. That was 3 frames, that was way too much. Let's not get crazy here, this is strictly amateur hour. So we're going to have this guy like squish and like contract and compress as he moves around very slightly. I don't know if this is really true, but my instinct is that if you can't be bothered to do a lot of frames for an animation, then you can make the animation quite slight. Like if it doesn't move too much, it doesn't matter that there's not that many frames to it. Whereas if I wanted to have them like squished down to a thin line and then up to a fat orb, then having only 2 frames would suck. You would see the difference too much. So we're going to do a very subtle one. But even so, to change the shape at all, we're going to need a bigger canvas. So I'm going to resize the canvas. Resizing the canvas is for the entire image, so the entire sprite, which means all of the frames, and that's okay, that's what we want for now. So all I'm going to do is take the second one and I'm going to scale it. Scale and stretch both do the same thing, basically. They both expand the thing, or shrink it, depending on what you say. But scale can be said to apply only to this frame, whereas stretch always applies to the whole image, whole sprite. So we're going to use scale. And you can say whether you want it to be horizontal or vertical. I actually want it to be horizontal because we'll do both, I think. We'll do both. The main thing I want is for you to kind of stretch out like that. We could have stretch out loads, but like I say, the more effect it has, the more frames we would need to make it look natural. And also, like, what we're really doing here is making the difference between something that is not animated at all and is animated. And the human eye is very good at noticing differences over time. Like, if you want to tell the difference between 2 images, if you put them side by side, it's quite difficult. That's how spot the difference puzzles work. But if you put them in the same spot and you flip between them, it's incredibly obvious right away. You see every single difference. So even very slight differences in frames can be will be very noticeable. So I might even reduce this a little bit. Yeah, that'll do. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do it again, because if it's stretching out that way, he should really be shrinking in the other dimension, so that his total mass is roughly the same. Oh wait, is that? I just changed it exactly 100. That's not shrinking. If I know anything about maths, that will do. Oh, it looks kind of shitty. It's giving it like an outline, I think. Yeah, alright, I don't care. That might just be a setting from the tool, but if not, GameMaker does sometimes have a problem where when it scales something, like if the camera zooms in or out, then something that previously was like perfectly clean, like if we made this perfectly clean like that, that's completely green and that's completely transparent. And when you blur the two, what you want to happen is for a thin, sort of a semi-transparent green layer to appear between them if there's going to be any blurring at all. But what GameMaker does is it blends not just it tries to find the average point between these 2 pixels. And this one is green and fully opaque, which means it has a alpha of 1 or 256, whatever the maximum alpha. And this one has the minimum alpha, 0. But it also has color values. You can't see them because it's totally invisible. But weirdly, most of the time, these invisible pixels are completely black. They're invisible, but they're invisible black. And that means when it blends them, stupidly, it blends some of the green with the black. So you'll get something that's 50-50 alpha, like half transparent, but it'll also be halfway between green and black, even though there's no black in this image whatsoever. But the transparent pixels are secretly black, so that's what it does. So fuck that. There isn't really a good way around that. I don't know how to, in its own sprite editor, I don't know how to set the colour of a transparent pixel, except there might be ways, but if you're doing serious art, you're probably doing it in like Photoshop or something, which I think makes it easier to set the colour of things that don't exist. Video game development, that's how it works. So don't forget to click center again after we've done that, because we changed the size of the canvas. The origin is in totally the wrong place now. And now, when a sprite has, we had these objects and we've all assigned them a sprite. We actually edited the sprite that was already assigned to this, so we don't need to assign a new one. The Game Maker looks to see if there are multiple frames of a sprite, and it will automatically animate. And I don't know what the default rate at which it animates is, but we want to define it anyway, because apart from anything, it will depend on our room speed, which we're trying to make things independent of that where possible. So the word for animation speed is actually image speed. So image, if we wrote sprite index, that is the S enemy thing here. If we write image index, that is the frame of the sprite that we're talking about. So image really means frame. And so image speed is the speed at which the frames are changing. And we want it to be something like, there'll be something divided by room speed. And remember, if we say like 1 divided by room speed, that's 1 per second. 1 change per second, that's going to be a bit slow, isn't it? So let's say like 10 changes per second. That might be a bit fast. But that is all we need to do, because this thing, it already faces the direction it's going in. The extra frame we just added is part of the original sprite, so it will rotate the same way. And hopefully this will just make him squidgle around. Squidgle is a new word. No. It didn't work at all, did it? Why didn't that work? Did I make it really fast? Really slow? Why didn't that work? Oh, maybe it's an exact multiple of speed times Sn. Oh, did we scale both frames? Stupid. Okay, what's the best way of undoing that? I think this is a bit hacky. Just don't do what I just did. But in particular, we're going to just try and make him look like he did before, which is like roughly like that vertically, and uncheck the apply to all images in the sprite. And then we'll scale it again and do the horizontal side. We'll just shrink it that way, don't we? Not by much though, that's kind of fine. Okay, sorry, that was dumb. Hopefully you noticed that as I was doing it. Probably not. That looks terrible. Okay, I did like a sort of practice run of this episode, like I normally do, and I did a much better job in that one. I didn't make that mistake, and so probably for the next time you see this game in the next episode, I will have replaced that shitty sprite with the one I made earlier. But I'm not going to do that now. That'll take a bunch of time, and it doesn't teach you anything. The point of that was the principle of how you change the speed of an animation. So, what if we wanted to animate the player? Now the player is also a blob, and we might want him to squidge and contract and compress and stuff. Contract and compress are the same thing. Contract and expand is what I mean. But the player faces the cursor right now, because we want him to be facing the direction he's firing. And if we would have him like squidging along as he's moving, then when you're moving and shooting, he would be squidging in the wrong direction. He'd be squidging like towards the cursor, rather than the direction he's going in. So we actually kind of want, I think the player should be like a kind of slug that has a bit of his body that's trailing along the ground, and a bit of his body that's kind of upright and can turn freely, which is basically like torso and legs. That's how we divide it in heat signature. So I'm going to duplicate a sprite. We're going to leave that sprite that we got right now. That's going to be his upper body that can rotate freely, and it will rotate as it does currently. But we're going to make a new one that will be his body, his lower body, his kind of legs. And we're going to... What's that? That's Pipette, yeah. Let's just fill in his eyes. Let's round that out so they're not affecting the shape. So we've got just a plain lump now, and we're going to increase the canvas size so that we've got some room to work with, maybe to like 96. We won't need that vertical space, but we're going to be rotating this thing a lot. I don't know, it probably doesn't matter at all, but I like things to be square and just have the sprite in the centre. And so, actually, before I edit that, let's copy and paste it a bunch of times. How many frames do we want? Let's do like 3, but yeah, once we've made them, we'll have them repeat in some ways. So just even the basic one I want to be a bit thinner than the upper body. Won't be very different. And so in fact I shouldn't have copy and pasted it before I did that. That's going to be the basic frame, and then we'll copy and paste that and we'll work from there. And let's just have it be a little bit longer and a little bit thinner. Maybe we'll have them kind of like pinch most in the middle. In fact, why do I keep copy and pasting a bunch of times? Always copy and paste the last frame, because then you're working with the thing that's closest to what you want. And this is a bit ridiculous now. It's kind of... I don't know what the logic of this is really, but maybe that'll look okay. It's going to look weird, and that's the part of the point. Actually, no, we do want to round that off a bit because I think I made it too long. Alright, let's just see how that looks. That's that's totally crazy. Actually, that's too crazy. Let's... Can I shrink those two? Maybe I'll shrink all of them. Let's do the stretch thing, which I said applies to all frames. And to get down to... Not going to keep the aspect ratio, we're going to make it like just 85 or something wide. Just so it's not quite so elongated. Because again, the more pronounced the animation, the worse it'll look that we only have a few frames. So we'll call that S-player legs, maybe? That's not what they are at all. Maybe we'll call it lower body. And then set the origin to the centre, and now we've got a new sprite. And so actually we've kind of done some of the work that we need to do here already, because if you remember, we changed our draw event so that we don't draw... Our image angle never changes, we actually just change our facing, and then we draw a sprite at the facing. So all of this we want to keep the same. I think I will, where it says sprite index, we now specifically mean the S-player sprite. And then we're going to have a whole new thing that we're actually going to... This will be the upper body. When you draw multiple things, you can draw as many sprites as you like in a draw event, although it slows the game down if you do hundreds and hundreds. They are drawn in that order. Each new one is drawn on top of the old one. So we want the lower body obviously to be beneath the upper body. So we're going to make the first draw event the lower body one. So we'll change it here. Let's play a lower body. And we don't want it to be in the facing direction, because the facing is that variable that we set to be pointing towards the mouse cursor all the time. That's the one that tracks the mouse cursor. We want it to be in the direction of movement. Let me think. That's just direction. But that's actually, we want to keep using image speed. So we are going to... It will be lower body, but we're going to say sprite index, because we're going to set our sprite index to be that. Because what we want, GameMaker will automatically be increasing our image index each frame by our image speed. And the problem with our current system is that our sprite, the thing we've said is our sprite, is the S-player one, which has no frames, so it can't increase the image index because there is no next frame to go to. So this, like what you set your sprite to here, really doesn't matter, because you can just write whatever you like in here, except that if you want it to be animated and you don't want to manually increase the image index, you want to let GameMaker handle that for you, that will always be going off whatever you set here. So we are going to set that to be the animated sprite, S-player lower body. And maybe I just test that right now. We haven't set a frame rate or anything, but the principle should be working. And if this does work, it'll illustrate that GameMaker is doing a bunch of stuff automatically for the thing that you set to be the sprite. Yep. So that's really cute. But you see the problem is it's going all the time. And it is, I think it is pointing in the right direction, isn't it? Yeah, it trails behind us whatever direction we're moving. It's not affected by us looking around, which is what we want. But it's going all the time. And so we don't actually, we don't want it to have, how do we want to manage it? Oh yeah, so we're going to set the image speed, but we're going to make the image speed proportional to our real speed. So the faster we move, the faster the animation progresses. So there's a decision to make here, because we could, here's where we set our speed from controlling, and here's where we set speed from being shunted around by things like kick and being knocked back by stuff. So do we want things like kick to affect our animation speed? I don't think we do actually. I think we're going to do it here. So we're going to say image speed, instead of setting it to like 10 divided by room speed, we're going to do speed divided by 10. That's like the sort of the animation, like how many frames do we progress per pixel of ground that we cover? And the answer is like less than 1. We don't want it to be loads. So let's see how that works. And then my logic there is like that will be applied before the shunting. So if we are not intentionally moving, but we get shunted around, we don't want our image index to change because we want the animation to kind of stay in place. So we're being knocked back, we kind of just slide. Not that the animation is clear or good enough for that to be at all noticeable. Hey, there we go. Perfect. I think that's a bit fast, isn't it? It's like gibbers too much. But something's really bothering me about our game, which is when you first switch to the single shotgun, it's already got a delay on it. You can't fire right away. We should fix that. So yeah, you're gibbering too much, but it is in the right direction, and it's kind of cute. Let's make it we want the image thing to progress less, so we'll divide it by more. And should we make it a bit bigger? Because you don't notice it that much, do you? Let's just scale the whole thing. No, stretch the whole thing. Similar concepts, but what would that be like? Probably too big, but we'll see. And then I just want to check the single shot gun, when it's created, seconds since last shot is 0. It shouldn't be, it should be seconds between shots, i.e. we want to be able to fire as soon as it exists. It shouldn't think that we only just fired when it's created, because we didn't. It should think we're ready to fire, whatever that means. So let's test those two things. Oh god, it looks horrible. I think the fact that I put the bulge in the middle actually makes it look like two separate objects, so sometimes it looks like there's one that's almost got separated from your body, which is not as fluid and nice seeming as I thought it would be. No, that still didn't work with the single shotgun. Okay, I don't know what's causing that. I'll have to look into it later. But yeah, that's animation. Oh, actually no, there's one more thing we do with animation, because someone asked this specifically. What if you want to tell, has the animation finished? That you want to play an animation and then you want something to happen at the end of the animation. Rather than sort of guessing how long it's going to take and setting a timer for them, you want to be able to detect, did we hit the last frame of the animation yet? And there are some subtleties to how you do that. So let's do that with the explosion. Because right now it just appears full size and then fades out. We could shrink it and grow it in code, but it might be more fun to... more educational, which is the same thing as fun, really, to stretch it, not stretch it, to scale it, and do that as an animation, because that way we can have that play, and then when it finishes playing, that's when we want this object to be destroyed. So have it start fairly small like that, and then go through each one of these and make it a bit bigger. And every time I forget which of these is which. Let's do one more, I think. That's only 70%. 55. Okay, that's animation. And that's the thing we want to play once and never again. And so on the creation of the explosion, go to its create event, and we'll set, as before, image speed equals 10 divided by room speed. I usually find it's the animation speed that looks right. It's good to just carry that across to everything. Like, I can't remember what it was in Gunpoint, it was like 0.3 or something was the animation speed of almost everything. And you can fine tune it if you like, but it's just good to know what right away that this is roughly the right image speed we want. So that's the speed it's going to play at, but we don't want it to loop. We go into the step event, and previously we were fading out, and once we fully faded out, that's when we destroyed ourselves. This time we can still fade out, or we can get rid of that depending on what you fancy, but the important thing is we want to say if, I'll write it as a comment, if our animation is over, and you can do the animation, the frame that we're on is image index, and the number of frames we have is image number. But bear in mind, image index starts from 0, so if you had 2 frames, the image indexes would be 0 and 1, and the image number would be 2, so it would always be less than 2, and you'd never pass this check, which is where image index is greater. So you've got to say image number minus 1. But there's still a problem with that, because image index ranges from 0 all the way up to image number minus 1. So if you had a 5 frame sprite, then it goes from 0 to 4. But once it goes over 4, it loops back to 0, and GameMaker does that for you automatically. And I've had cases where this never passes, even though the animation is looping, because one frame we're not as high as image number minus 1, and the next frame we've gone past it and we've looped back to 0. So what we actually want to know is, are we about to go past it? So image index plus image speed, is that more than the maximum frame? In other words, if we're about to go beyond it and loop back to the start, then we ought to destroy ourselves. So let's see if that works. Yeah! Well, they seem quite small, don't they? Maybe it's never getting to the last frame. Should it be maybe... I mean, that's fine, that's not a problem, but I feel like we might be missing something. Greater than or equal to image number? Is that going to be any different? Probably not. I think this single shot gun, the reason it's not working well is that the second between shots is defined there, and we want it to be, we want the second since the last shot to equal that as soon as you pick up the gun. I don't totally know how to do that. We're going to leave that. It's not related to our current problem. It's just the thing that's bothering me, because every time I play to pull off this chain reaction thing, this 1-2 shot, I have to fire the gun right after picking it up, and it doesn't work right after you pick it up. I've accidentally launched in debug mode here. That's not intentional or necessary. Okay, well that's doing what it's doing. I might be wrong about the image speed thing. Maybe we don't need that at all. Maybe the code has changed since I last did this. But we're going to leave it. That's animation. That's the best I can do with animation. I don't deal with it that much. So, I said we'd also do camera shake, which we will. So, for camera shake, we're going to have that handled by the game object, because that's our sort of global thing. And what I want to be able to do is, when something explodes, each individual thing that explodes or creates some kind of camera shaking event, it should just set a number. So what I want to be able to say is, like, on this explosion thing, I want to be able to write, when the explosion is created, I just want to say screen shake 50, and that will shake the screen by 50, and it will that'll happen, and it will be that of that magnitude, and then it will die down over a certain period of time. So that 50, that's going to be our screen shake amount. So back in this is the create event for the game object, not the explosion object. Go away. Yeah, create event of the game object. We're going to define something called screen shake amount equals 0, and we're going to let other people set our screen shake amount. Other objects can mess with that if they like. And then in our code, we're going to say something like if screen shake amount is greater than 0, if something did set our screen shake amount to something, then we certainly want to reduce it because we want it to sort of fade out over time. So we'll subtract 5 from it, and we're going to apply it to the location of the view. But the problem that we're going to have is that if we just did something like view x view equals view x view plus random amount up to the shake amount, if we do that, then as it shakes around, it's going to drift because the random value might be. In fact, in this case, it will always be positive, so it might be like 5 one frame, and then 10 the next frame, and then 15 the next frame, maybe it goes down all the way down to like 3 and 2 and 1, but because they're all positive, you'd be drifting the whole screen all the way over there. And even if we allowed for negative values, it might just so happen that all the random numbers we got were positive, and we end up not where we started. So we need to know, where did we start? Where were we before we started the screen shake? And that is, we only want to note that if there is no screen shake. So this is the if statement for if there is some screen shake. We're going to no, I'll cut that for now. If there isn't any screen shake, then for all the time that there's no screen shake, we want to note our position. So I'm actually just going to say the game object itself will move to track this the view's x coordinate and the view's y coordinate. So if there's no screen shake, or if it's somehow got less than 0, we'll set it to 0. And if there's no screen shake, then note our position. If there is screen shake, then reduce that screen shake. And then either way, I guess I'll wait till that's the most logical way. There's basically a sort of a neat way to do it and a logical way to do it, and they're not the same thing as is often the case in coding. So here's the logical thing. We want to change the view's x coordinate, the view's x coordinate to be x, which will be our x and y, which will be our kind of our anchor position. That's where we started. That's the real position the camera should be in if it wasn't shaking. And then add on to that some random offset, and it should really be random range going between minus screen shake amount and positive screen shake amount. And we'll base that and change that to y and that to y. And so that says every frame reduce the amount of screen shake. We could put it after that, I guess. And move our view by a random amount in both the x and the y directions. It could be positive or negative in either case, and just offset us from where we should be by that much. And because it's reducing, it will kind of calm down and get back to nothing eventually. And then this says if it is nothing, or it's gone even less than nothing, set it to nothing, and then just set our firstly. So this is where it gets tricky. I don't really want to do that there. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to put it afterwards, because here we say screen shake amount equals 0. So this will be 0. This random range thing will always be nothing if screen shake amount is 0. So we can do that here, and then we don't have to worry about when we kind of how to set the view back to x and y when the screen shake stops. We just always set the x and y to our anchor point plus whatever the current offset is. And if we have a screen shake amount, then it's constantly being reduced. If we don't have one, then it's set to exactly 0, so we know this won't have any effect at all. So hopefully that will work. And now we just need to make a script. I hope I haven't gone too fast on that one. I prototyped it once, so I already know exactly what I'm doing. He says, hoping it doesn't crash this time. So we're going to make a script, and what we want for the script to do is to set OGame's screen shake amount to argument 0, so whatever we put in the brackets. And I'll give it its proper / explanation. So that's where you define how that function will be called, and after you've done that, if you type screen shake, open brackets, then at the bottom of the screen it tells you that's the amount. The thing it wants from you in the brackets is the amount, so we can say screen shake 50, which is exactly what we said we wanted to do. So all that code is there now. Let's pick a nice and simple thing like the exploding enemy. When he explodes, let's have him cause some screen shake. So hit by projectile, screen shake, let's give it failure like 15, and see how that works. Maybe I'll go through and comment the code so if the logic wasn't clear, then it will be written out. So, oh yeah, there's a little bit. It's not enough, is it? Yeah, it's a tiny little judder, but we should make it much more. I think actually might just be that it's not. Maybe we'll make that like 25, and then the other thing is it's calming down really quickly, so it's very, very brief. So if we go into our game object, this thing where we reduce it by 5 every frame, let's only reduce it by 3. Let's try that again. If this works, then we can go through and put screen shake on all kinds of things and change its magnitude and stuff. Yeah, that feels better. Yeah. It shouldn't be too drastic because this is going to happen a lot. You know, these things are going to be killing each other in chain reactions and stuff. So it's just a nice little judder that makes you feel like something important happened. So that's cool. Yeah, so we'll just go through and re-explain what this was. So if we've been told to shake the screen by any amount, make sure that amount is being reduced each frame, so we recover. Let's say stabilize eventually. If we've stabilized or never had any screen shake, note the position the view should be in. So when we're not shaking, then have the game object move to track where the view is, because as soon as we move the view, we're going to lose track of where it was, so we need that noted down. We could make these variables, we could say like normal screen position X, but I didn't do that because then I've got to declare them in the create event, and that's boring. And then here, apply any screen shake, or sorry, view position should wobble away from normal position by screen shake amount. I had an extra note there to say if it's 0, this will be perfectly stable. And now if we go through the screen shake thing, script, let's have it happen when the player dies. That's probably the biggest event that can possibly happen. So here, so screen shake, we said 25 the other one, so let's make this one like 80. That's going to be a big thing, and it's going to take a while to recover from it. But if another enemy explodes in that time, then it will be setting its screen shake to 25, and if we look at what that function does, it sets the O-game screen shake amount to whatever we said. So it actually overrides the more dramatic screen shake of the player. So what do we want to happen? Really, we want the most dramatic screen shake to take precedence. You know, if there's a really big shake going on, then a small shake shouldn't override it and stabilize the camera. The idea is it being rocked around by some kind of force in the game world, and a smaller force wouldn't just stop the bigger force. It would probably make a bigger force slightly worse, but if you add them together, then you get silly effects like lots of very small screen shake effects would amount to one huge one, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Small tremors shouldn't ever really amalgamate into one big thing. So the best way to do it with our simple system is we could do an if statement and say if the screen shake amount we're being asked to do is greater than what it already has, then set it to that, and otherwise ignore it. But the simple way to write that is we want it to be the maximum of whatever it currently is and whatever we're setting it to. So we've got two numbers, we want to know what the biggest one is, the maximum one of these two, and that is just max. We say max, open brackets, and then two values. Actually, it can be as many values as you like, you put loads in the brackets. We just want to know, set it to the biggest one of those two. If the new one is bigger, then set it to that. So, let's do that. Let's also, what other thing should have screen shake? Explosions when they're created. That was my example in the first place. That should be, I think like 15, because we have a lot of those in big chain reactions, so it don't have to be too dramatic. Shrinking enemy I don't think will, because he's kind of like slow and he's not really affected by the shot, so I don't think that's a big impactful thing. But single shot gun, we apply some kick to the player, don't we? So let's have some screen shake as well. And that one, let's call that 15 as well. So enemies dying, explosions happening, player dying, and shooting. Those four things, all called screen shake now. So let's try firing. No detectable screen shake from that really. Oh, there's a tiny bit. Yeah, there is a tiny bit. And chain reactions. Yeah, that's good. It's like a steady rumble. Whoa, no, that's close. And if there's people caught up in the explosion, then it's a bigger rumble, which is cool. And now what happens if I die? Whoa, big explode, big rocking, big screen shake. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. A big rocking explosion. And so now let's see what happens if I just pick up loads of. Oh, I think maybe our timing's off with the explosion, so it's fading out before it gets a chance to get big. Maybe something not quite right there. Let's kill a bunch of shrinking enemies. Get all this precious juice. And now we've got quite a rapid fire gun. I'm going to do some more because we don't have too much. So now I have this very rapid fire, and you see that little screen shake, it was hardly noticeable when it was one shot. When it's lots of shots, you really feel it, like this is juddering now. And that's kind of cool. Let's fill my entire power bar, just for the sake of completion. I did it! I win video games! This is the highest possible level of achievement to have filled the power bar in my own game. Yeah, the combination of actual, like, there's physical kick that's really affecting my position, and there's screen shake to make me kind of feel like it's kick. That really works. The sound effect's pathetic at the moment, so that's the last ingredient to make that feel properly good. But yeah, that's my shitty attempt at animation, my shitty attempt at screen shake, and everything else. So thanks for watching.